All right. Well, welcome, Astara. Thank you so much for saying yes to this. I'm really honored.
Oh, thank you, Porter. Happy to be here.
Yeah. So we were doing a little bit of pre-talk before this. Could you just repeat for people who are now listening, not just me, kind of how you got into the publishing world and what your vision was for all that?
Yeah, absolutely. So my first career was as a graphic designer, and I became a book designer, and I was working on covers and interior designs, as well as branding and brand identity. And so I ended up in New York City, and that's where I got a lot of my experience designing books and learning about publishing. So I went into corporate after college and after grad school, where I became a therapist. I went into corporate publishing, and it was great for a while until it wasn't anymore, because it's quite a dinosaur now in terms of honoring the author's voice. That wasn't happening. And there was so much.
I just feel like you glossed over that. That was really interesting, though. Like, did something happen there from graphic designer to therapist to publisher?
Well,
because you're like, and then I was a therapist.
Yeah, it's funny. I was an art therapist and a transpersonal counseling psychology. That's what my graduate degree was in. And so that was just all a part of my quest to just know myself, I guess, in my early years, in my 20s. I'm 52 now, so this was a while ago. But it's where I picked up my skill set around creating books and honing in on somebody's message, but also the way writing can become a portal, and art is a portal into the soul. So when I became an art therapist, I was exploring that idea of doing that work, which I did for a while. I had a private practice, and I worked with kids and adults. And art therapy is using fine art and art making as a tool for healing, and going above and beyond the Freudian model of psychology. It was about accessing the spiritual part of ourselves. So I was seeking that along with learning about it and how to help other people. And so fast forward into my 30s, now I've got 3 little girls, married, and freelancing, taking care of my kids, and we were fighting about money. So I decided to go get a job. And so I got a job in a publishing company, and worked my way up to being the creative director there. And this was about 13, 14 years ago. And that's when everything in my life really flipped, because my marriage up until that point was pretty parallel. There wasn't a lot of, it wasn't, it was just sort of like the default. It wasn't what I wanted. And I didn't even know what I wanted at that point, right? In terms of how to be in relationships.
Yeah, can relate to that.
But there I was, having done the things that I was supposed to do, and had the kids and had the white picket fence and had the career and all of that, and went back to work to be contributing financially to my household. And I fell in love with somebody else.
Oh, wow.
And that's what happened. That was the thing. The catalyst for burning down everything that I had known up until that point, sort of catalyzing my own spiritual awakening to the next level. And he was the president of my company, and I was the creative director. So it ended up being a big scandal. We got divorced. We left corporate. We started our own company. You said you wanted it all, so here it is.
Oh, no, I'm not laughing because of that. It's just so funny because I went through almost the exact, well, not the exact same thing, but also similar marriage, fell in love. Now I'm in different relationship. It's just funny how.
Yeah, right. And, I now looking back over the course of 30 years, I see it's so obvious to me, sort of why it happened for me and not to me.
Yeah.
But so it did happen for me. And at the time, it did not feel like it necessarily, because it was really hard and there was a lot of fallout. But what it did was get me onto this fast track of evolution so that I could get in tune with my own spiritual nature, and then be able to support others in doing that too. Because that's really what I'd been seeking my whole life, even throughout these different careers and pathways. And so now what I do is I support primarily women, a few men here and there, but mostly women who have a story to share, and the importance of that, and the transformation that happens from when you go from the seed of an idea to holding your book in your hands and stepping out and being visible and being fearless and vulnerable all at the same time, being willing to shine your light and just speak truth, and clear all that shame. That's what I support women to do. And then publishing is part of that elevation for them to take that quantum leap into the next level of who they're going to be in the world, and know themselves better.
I know when you were talking about it, you said that you support women who have a story to share. Do you purposefully not go, I support writers because you're sort of they're becoming? Is that the idea, or do you also call them writers from the beginning?
They're all writers. Everybody's a writer.
Okay, I just wanted to know
really how I feel about it. Yeah. So in other words, there are people who write for a career and professional writers who come work with us. And then there's also people who just feel like, I've been through on this journey. I have something to share. I have a message and I want to leave a legacy. And here's what it is. And they may or may not be entrepreneurial, or they may have healed from trauma, or they may be wanting to create a business to support their work in the world. They're, just knowing that they need to tell their story. And by doing so, they're giving other people permission to do the same. So it's not so much skill-based. However, we do teach a lot about how to write, and we help to elevate everybody's writing so that it's publishable, that it's amazing writing. So that's where my corporate comes in, because I have those very high professional standards, and I know about the industry and the business, and want to bring our best work forward as a company and promote people whose work is inspiring and is really good. So there's that piece, but also I have writers I have a writer who's blind. I have a writer who doesn't type, she just speaks, and then we take it from there and edit it, speak to text.
Wow.
To text, right? So there's a lot of ways of getting your story out, depending on who you are and how you want to do it. Most of them write their books. I also work with a lot of artists who do a combination of fine arts or some kind of art making along with writing, and combining poetry and imagery and photography and all kinds of things into whatever their message or curriculum might be.
Yeah. That's so cool. So it all sort of ties together. You found this beautiful way to do all these things that have inspired you in the past.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And for a while, when I got onto the Priestess path, which was really when I began to learn about energy and learn about the divine feminine and how women have been suppressed for eons, and our voices have been suppressed. And when I sort of was thrust out of my own little bubble and into the awareness of the collective, of oneness consciousness, then I was able to see how it all just is in divine order, really, because for me to burn down my life and to rebuild and to, go in and learn about myself and learn about energy. And having been a therapist, I did hours and hours and hours of my own therapy, but it wasn't at all getting close to what energy work and this priestessing and archetypal energy and the divine feminine has brought to me. So I really believe in it as any type of self-expression of creativity as a portal into the soul. And that it's necessary, that we need to create archives. We need to speak up. We need to discover what is our story, and then share the story of transformation and transmutation so that we can help each other do it.
That is so tricky when I'm thinking about that. I'm like, I would love to write a book. Wait, where was I 20 years? Mentally, where was I 20 years ago? Do the writers that you work with kind of go through that? Is it hard to think the way you thought in order to kind of create this arc of where I was to where I've come?
Well, it definitely takes some excavation in a lot of cases to be able to really decide first of all, what is my topic? What am I going to write about? Which aspect of my journey do I want to focus on? And is it a memoir? Is it fiction? Is it something else? Is it poetry, or art? So that's a first decision. People come and they say, I want to write my memoir. And so then there's a process of doing that, of recreating this heroine's journey that the person's been on. And a lot of that I can provide is like story pulling, helping to pull the story out and asking the right questions to get it and pull it through, right? But then also there's this period of just not knowing anything, where I invite our writers, once they submit an outline or create beats, which is basically like the main plot points of whatever it is they want to write about, whether it's fiction or nonfiction, I'm inviting them to give me an outline or beats first, sort of as a roadmap, because then if you get lost in the weeds, you can find your way home again. But the goal is to get lost in the weeds, to just, we call it run wild moonchild, like just write with no editing and don't try not to kick in that left brain, just keep it as much as possible, just this channeling or emptiness, so that you can receive what wants to come through you. And then from there's a process of refining and turning it into a first draft manuscript.
Gotcha.
But that phase of letting yourself run wild with your creativity without being stifled by your own perfectionism or any editing or anything at that first phase is really important. Just like, I'm sure like singing, like you have to be able to like break outside the boundaries of what it is you're creating in order to get to the magic.
Yeah. Does that happen in like do you have like an in-depth conversation with the person about what they want to write, or like, Yeah.
So we have an initial call together where we talk about, by the time they've enrolled, we've already had this conversation. Okay, what is it that you want to write about? How much experience do you have? Do you have a writing practice now or not? Sort of, where are you on the pathway? Yeah. And you can start wherever you are, but that just helps me know where to start with you. Some people, one woman had a manuscript in her drawer for 9 years.
Oh, wow.
So
she'd already written it.
She'd written parts of it.
Okay.
So we spent some time talking about that. And then she basically started over because it just wasn't resonating anymore. Mm-hmm. But she has been able to pull parts of that and use it in her new manuscript, quotes and things. So it just depends on where you are. And if you don't even know what you're going to write about, then we go through a process of distilling that down and just making a decision.
Yeah. It was interesting. You mentioned like, when I asked you about the memoir and like how you create that memory of what it was like to be you so long ago. And you were talking about like, well, you have to choose what you're going to write about. And I'm like, oh, of course you have to make it, like, you can't talk about everything that happened.
No, right. I say that all the time too. This isn't your War and Peace. It doesn't have to be. This is just maybe your first, or maybe it's your 10th book, because a lot of people have come and already written and self-published and they've just want to take it to the next level. So deciding what is it and what was that turning point? What was that moment in your life that is really pivotal, that you knew something had to change? So we'll go back into pull those stories out from, okay, well, where do you want to start? And how does it feel if you start here in the modern present day, but then go back in time? Or do you want to start at that pivotal moment when you were 5 and then jump forward in time to tell how it all comes together? Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of different ways to put it together, but the most important thing first is to just start pulling everything you can remember and pulling it out and writing the stories. Not perfectly, no editing. Just getting them out of you, like purging everything that's in there first.
Right.
Giving yourself space to do that.
Yeah. I'm smiling because it's like you frame something as art therapy in one part of your life, it seems like, and then you frame something as like writing a book, but they're both kind of the same thing.
Yeah, it's all therapy, right? We just don't call it that. We just call it, presence and evolution and the willingness to look at, to work on yourself and to make your life better and bring increase to other people and walk the path of love, right? This is the Magdalen energy that runs through a lot of my work and a lot of my clients, and my relationship with Kathleen McGowan is the divine feminine and the Magdalen energy of accessing that perseverance, that resilience, that unconditional love, the compassion, the mercy, all of the pieces that we may not have brought back online because of trauma or just because of life.
Yeah.
So those pieces are where we focus, because in general, I would say most of us, myself included, are always working on self-love. And we have to face all those demons as we're committing to something, and then saying, okay, I'm going to do this thing. Am I in integrity? Am I going to really do it? Or am I just saying it? Like, what's the truth? What's real? And how am I sabotaging myself? That's what writer's block is. It's just a way to sort of, the fear can just sort of just detract you and distract us from going through that process, because it's scary.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'd never heard writer's block described as that. That seems very,
yeah. It's like, I don't know, nothing's there. It's like subconscious. It's a subconscious fear of even seeing what's there.
Yeah.
Sometimes, or it could just be we're too tired. We need more self-care. There's so many ways that writer's block shows up. And in my own life, I procrastinated for a long time. I still have not written my own book, and I'm a publisher, right? So I think I'm the best example of writer's block. I write very well for other people. I write a lot of introductions. I write a lot of prologues and notes from the publisher, but I haven't yet written my own book. So that's like, why? Oh, I'm afraid it's going to suck. And then people won't want to work with me, right? So then I'm working with that fear. Why am I afraid of that? I have the best team in the world who help everybody else's stories become publishable and amazing. Why wouldn't I allow myself to have that too?
Yeah.
Right. So it's just this kind of challenge, this internal challenge of, how much am I ready to reveal? Why am I doing this? What's my point? And who is my reader? Because it's a relationship with the reader. It's not just a therapeutic exercise. We're actually helping to serve somebody who's going to read it. So we really have to get clear on who is my reader? What is it that I want to share with them? What nuggets do I have? How can I best serve them through this writing?
Yeah.
And what's my point?
It's interesting because I was just thinking as you were saying that, like, yes, you haven't written your own book. Also, when we're talking about the divine feminine and the way that divine feminine works, right? You have been the midwife for so many of these creations. And so it's not just the masculine, well, I didn't do that, she wrote it. It's like we all did this. So in a sense, you have, right?
You're right. And thank you for that, because I realized too that I have birthed many different stories, and some of them are mine and some of them are other people's, but I've been a part of that, right? Like you said, that midwifing process. And and it's a beautiful thing. I feel like it's an easy thing for me to do. It's actually safer to help support other people's stories, right? So there's always this reflection back. Anything that we do in our lives, we can use that as an initiation into our own growth. So every project that I'm working on, every book, every idea, every author, it's certainly a co-creation, and it's what really gets me excited about my work.
Do you feel like talking a little bit about, because you mentioned Kathleen McGowan, I would love to hear how y'all got in contact. And was it before she wrote the Magdalen books, or like during, after?
A couple of years ago, actually.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, so let's hear about that.
Yeah, so her books had been around, and I had not read them yet until I went to Egypt in March of 2020.
Okay.
And right before COVID hit, I went to Egypt with Rima Bonario, a wonderful woman, colleague, and one of my authors. And she runs sacred tours to Egypt. So I went with her to Egypt. And when we came back, she told me about Kathleen's books. So I started reading them. And then about a few months after that, Kathleen and Rima had known each other through Facebook, and Rima saw something where Kathleen was looking for a publisher. She wanted, I believe, like a feminine, spiritually based publisher. She was not cool with corporate anymore. She was done.
Mm.
And so Rima introduced us, and when we met each other, we just fell in love with each other and just said, let's do this. No contracts, no nothing. We're trusting each other. We're going to co-create. We're going to make something happen. And so what I did was I created an imprint, a publishing imprint for her called Astara Press, which is sort of like a separate arm of my company, Flower of Life Press, in which Kathleen has creative control. She gets to publish what she wants. We're going to publish her books through her imprint, Astara Press. But I am deeply involved in supporting all of that and helping manifest whatever it is she wants to do through that portal. So we're partners. We're partners and co-creators. And she and I now co-teach Divine Writing Journey, which is my 9-month-long writing course, where we help people write their manuscript and get published. And
how many months did you say?
9 months. 9 months. Yeah. The perfect gestational period.
Yeah. So the women who went with you, or the people who went with you to France, they're still in process, or was this the end?
That was a separate thing. So it wasn't necessarily part of Divine Writing Journey. It was just a separate writers retreat. So there were people there who are in our course currently, and then other people as well who aren't. So we were in France hosting a writing retreat just last couple weeks ago. And it's so special because Kathleen lives there. So she's been researching and living there for so long that we can just drop right in and really get the magic of France, of the south of France and of Cathar country. And the people who want to work with us tend to have some kind of connection to this idea of divine feminine leadership, or the voice of the feminine in our world. And in fact, many people who find their way to us have left traditional religion and are seekers of more Gnostic spirituality, and also historians, people just interested in history, because Kathleen is a historian. So it's a fabulous combination of spirit and history and place and self-expression.
Yeah.
And we get to publish all these amazing stories from these people. So yeah.
So cool. I feel so blessed to have been aware of Kathleen's Patreon community, where we just get to listen to her talk about all this stuff. It's just like, oh my gosh, is this real?
Her stories are amazing.
Yeah.
You go on tour with her. She runs tours to Egypt and France and the Holy City and Scotland. So if anybody goes on tour with her, you'll see what it's like. She's just 110% there with you, leading you through all of these beautiful spiritual experiences, and then sharing hilarious stories and having amazing food and great wine. And, it's a really, really neat way to research. A lot of people will go on tour with her also so they can research for their books.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting. I actually grew up in the south of France, but more east of Cathar country, I think. But I mean, this was, when I read her book, everything was new to me. I mean, like literally everything. I had no idea that there was stuff like that going on in France.
Wow.
Yeah. It was so
wow.
it's really cool for that reason for me too. It's like, it gives me a whole different perspective of what was going on there.
Yeah. Now, how did you come back to the States then from France?
Well, I was my parents wanted, my dad really wanted to be in France. When I was done with high school, I was like, see you later. I am done with this. So I never moved back. I've been back a lot, but I haven't ever lived there since then. Yeah. I wanted to.
I imagine I will end up there at the end of my life at some point. I feel like that's where I want to be ultimately.
Yeah. It's really beautiful. The food is amazing. The life is amazing. There's like, I mean, with what you do, for example, like I always talk to my mom about this, she's like, if I could live anywhere, I would be back in France. I'm like, yeah, but you wouldn't have been able really to be an entrepreneur. You don't have the same like there are trade-offs for sure about
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
thing in there. So definitely
I get
quality of life, but
that. Mhm,
yeah,
mhm.
yeah,
So,
interesting.
yeah.
Yeah. So what has like was the information in her books new to you when you read them, or was this like stuff you had been kind of immersed in prior to
Well,
meeting
I
her?
had been, I had not, I am an anointing priestess. I've done some work with, I've worked with the 13 Moon Mystery School for about 8 years, and that's really embodying the different faces of the goddess and learning about energy
What was that
in
called?
order.
Sorry.
The 13 Moon Mystery School.
13 Moon Mystery School. I have never heard of that.
That's founded by Ariel Spilsbury.
Okay.
And my teacher there is Elaine Dowdy, a British woman. And so I have been exposed to the Magdalen Mysteries and that work through that temple, and also through Diana Dubrow's work with anointing and the Rosa Mystica Mystery School. So that one is purely Magdalene focused. And I've been a part of that temple for a few years. So I was exposed to it prior to meeting Kathleen, but I wasn't really devoted or dedicated to this particular archetype of Mary Magdalene as I am now. And when I was raised Episcopalian, and there was no feminine in the church ever, and I never felt connected. I just didn't get it. I didn't get it. It didn't resonate for me. So then I went to a Buddhist graduate college, and I just have been like
Went to a Buddhist graduate college? Where was that?
That's called Naropa, and it's in Boulder, Colorado.
Oh, I think I've heard of that.
Yeah. So I'd had experience to different lineages and different spiritualities and understood a little bit about different religions, but I guess I'm just a mishmash of a lot of things now. And so the work with the Magdalene has really felt like it's brought me home to my roots. It's allowed me to understand my lineage and feel connected. My mother's Scottish, 100%. So I'm more than 50% Scottish, right? And so I have these connections to Europe. All of my DNA is European. And so after I came home from France, I did my my DNA because now I'm feeling really connected and rooted into France and this particular lineage. And because it's part of my personal lineage, I'm really interested in learning more about what's real about that for me. And
I had that same idea the other day too, actually, because of, maybe it was yesterday, actually, after the call. I was like, I wonder what my lineage is.
Yeah, because it just helps you feel like you belong. I mean, for me, it just really has allowed me to sort of connect even with my ancestors, my own grandparents. Both my grandfathers died before I was born. And so to be able to, and one of my grandmothers too, so to be able to go back and begin to connect with my roots, with my ancestors, with the land where my people came from, the DNA that is of me is that. So it's opened that up a lot. And I'm going to England in July for a week to go on tour with Kalila, Elaine Dowdy, and go to the Chalice Well and do some deep Magdalene ceremonial work.
Well, so tell me about that. I don't know anything about that.
Oh, well, it's like a week, 10-day pilgrimage to Glastonbury.
Oh, okay.
And Glastonbury supposedly in England is the ethereal place of Avalon.
Oh,
so there's a lot of like the Holy Grail, and a lot of the Arthurian legends, and a lot of the Magdalen mysteries are connected there because there's some stories about Magdalene and Yeshua being in England, being there.
Right. Okay.
So I don't really know yet because I haven't done this kind of tour before. So I'm really excited to go and learn more about the stones and the the place itself and the site.
Wow, that sounds really cool.
Yeah.
You said you just got back from a trip. Do you travel a lot?
I do. And luckily I've been in community with people who happen to run tours. I mean, so I would have never thought I would ever go to Egypt. I'm from Minnesota. I'm a girl from Minnesota, and that just wasn't ever really on my radar until it was. And so I didn't do a lot of travel as a younger person. So now in my 40s and 50s, I've been able to do that and tie it into my work.
That's so neat.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But I also have a daughter still at home who's in high school still. Two of them are in college, but Bella's still here. And so I need to be here for her. And so I've backed off a little bit since COVID and all of that to give myself that time with her in her last year.
Do you, I forgot what I was going to ask about that. Never mind.
Yeah.
Oh yes. Do you bring her? I was wondering that actually.
Or
any of your daughters, do they have interest in it?
Hasn't happened yet. They haven't really been that interested, actually. Yeah. When they get a little bit older, maybe.
Yeah.
But they're just in there, they're doing their thing, they're doing their lives. And I've made the invitation and I haven't gotten a yes yet. So I'll just keep doing it and see what happens.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. People are always asking me like, so your boys must love having a singer for a mother. And I'm like, not really. They're not big fans. Yeah. It's definitely keep inviting and we'll see.
Mm-hmm. At some point they'll get it. I think they're just still, I think back to myself in my 20s and teens and 20s, and I was not interested in hanging out with my parents at all. Yeah. So I kind of get it. I really get it.
Yeah.
Even though it's hard, it's really hard sometimes, but.
Yeah, I haven't gotten to that period yet. That seems like a little heartbreaking. Yeah.
It definitely is. Yeah. It's like it's just another phase though. I don't think it's forever. Kind of like the terrible twos, the terrible teens, or, luckily I've had it really easy with my kids. I haven't had any issues, so it's been a real gift.
That's cool.
not have to add like those kinds of issues onto my plate.
Yeah. Yeah. That's nice. I mean, I was talking to somebody the other day too. She claimed she was like, girls are so easy. I'm like, that's a cool perspective. My parents would have said the exact opposite. They thought having the son was easy and the daughter was hard, but I guess it kind of depends what your preferred parenting style is. Maybe like if you're really good at emotions, maybe that's easier for you.
Yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't say I was the one that was good with emotions at all. Not until the past maybe 10 years. And they've already been through that really vital time between, age 0 and 7. And I was not awake yet when they were little. So there's always this feeling of like, oh, if only I knew then what I know now, but it's all perfect. At some point we just have to surrender and just trust that like, this is what life is. We just take the next step, do the best we can with where we are until we learn something else and take that next step. That's all we can do.
Yeah.
Be willing to keep taking that next step. And, my husband and I were talking about this the other day. It seems like I was reading a book and they said in the book that life is loss. And I thought about that for a while. Yeah, life is loss. And if we don't cut ourselves off from that part of life, then maybe we can embrace it more and find more balance. But on the other hand, we don't want to be focused on the negative and always like in that lower vibration of loss. So then I just reversed it and thought, loss is life. Yeah, loss is life. and so life is life. And it is what it is. And it's like humans are always searching to relieve themselves of loss or pain and suffering, but it is life. And so why do we think it's not going to be around? And
Yeah.
so then it's just a matter of like, how do I choose to be in that moment and respond and allow myself to feel it, but also witness and transmute that energy as quickly as possible.
I remember my first experience of somebody dying in my life, and I was in my teens, and I just remember thinking like, wow, you guys like don't know how to do this. Like, this is really, like you assume adults know how to do things well, but we don't have like beautiful rituals or ceremonies, or like in other cultures, they have a way of like, I mean, with everything really, it's like you kill for food, you say a prayer, there's like what's the word? There's like a sacredness about these rites of passage.
Yeah.
That we
it's true. And it's true. And I think that's the other piece about the Magdalen that's been really great for me is to realize that she was a death doula, that she was stewarding herself through the loss of her beloved and going out there and working with people and ministering and being, creating homeless shelters and being willing to be with it and not running away from it. And so I just think it's such an important thing, especially with COVID, how it's like in our face now, and everything about our relationship with death has changed and keeps changing. And so I feel like this work with the divine feminine and the Magdalen in particular is really helpful to just find that depth of presence in our life, that we can let all of that be okay. Let all of it be okay.
I just got the ping that I needed to ask you about these mystery schools, so I'm going to do that. Would you tell me something about them? That, first of all, are you allowed to talk about them at liberty? Or are there parts of it that are not supposed to be spoken about? Or
no, it's, and you can find more information at priestesspresence.com. That's the temple, the Priestess Presence Temple, that's run by Elaine Kalila Dowdy. And it's based on the work from the 13 Moon Mystery School by Ariel Spilsbury. And it's basically, the framework of it is the 13 faces of the goddess, and working within those archetypes, learning about the energy and about the examples and the color frequencies and the totems and all the aspects of the energy of each goddess, face of the goddess. So for instance, Great Mother is one of them. And so in all different religions, there's generally a Great Mother archetype, whether it's Mother Mary or whether it's Isis or somebody else. There's examples of her in the world, like living and archetypally. And she represents rooting down, connection with the earth, connection with nature, the womb of creation, the getting in touch with our creatrix, with our own relationship to our mothers, to ourselves as mother, to the feminine face of God, basically, Great Mother. Another example would be the goddess of compassion. So this could be,
so that's the card you pulled, right?
Exactly. And that's, she embodies compassion and forgiveness, and Great Mother is all about unconditional love. Goddess of compassion is all about mercy and compassion. And then you have the priestess, right? Who's the attuner of energy. She resonates and helps to resonate the field and keep the field coherent, whatever she's doing. So she can be very fluid in the moment and, hold center in the midst of chaos. So there's light and shadow qualities about all these archetypes too. So for instance, the priestess, the light quality would be like really being in touch with your intuition, maybe your psychic capacities, your ability to know and feel and see. And many healers are embodying this energy, but the shadow might be perfectionism, depression. So you're always looking to find that balance because it's all there. And so we're like basically expanding our capacity to feel everything and get in touch with our feelings again, because we've been so cut off from the body as our temple, from the earth as our temple. So those are just a few examples of different faces of the goddess that we work with and learn about and practice being embodied with that energy, in order to, find new ways of being in the world and to walk that path of love and to choose love over fear and to know how to transmute energy.
What does the practice look like? Is it like a prayer, a dance? Like how is it a reading? Like what do you?
All kinds of stuff. It's all kinds of stuff. Yeah. But it's basically, temple is a sacred space where we can go, kind of like going into church or going into nature, where you can go and get in touch with your soul. So it's beyond just the everyday life experience and going into a place where you can get more vulnerable, where you can be connected to your spiritual self, your higher self, and with like-minded people and in sisterhood in this community, learning how to be with women in a new way, because we've been so wired by the patriarchy to be competing and in comparison with each other. And so it's unlearning a lot of that and learning how to be intuitive, how to be softer, how to be less aggressive and fighty, learning about boundaries, learning about honesty, learning about how to express what's true, how to let yourself rewire all of those conditioned beliefs that I'm not good enough, I'm unworthy, all of the stuff that's been imprinted for so long. What's wrong with me? Like feeling there's something that needs to be fixed. So it's a way of going in, and it's through, embodied teachings, it's through readings, it's through prayer, it's through sharing, through community, through honoring the Celtic Wheel of the Year, for example, like honoring the different phases of the seasons. And
I don't know about that.
Yeah. So there's all kinds of
is that like a calendar? It's basically like the Celtic calendar.
It's like different practices from ancient people that you can learn about that are very helpful in this day and age when we're so brainwashed by our screens and nobody knows what's real, and there's so much confusion and mass media and war and all of this stuff going on. So it's really just a haven. It's a place to kind of go home and feel at home no matter what.
Yeah.
So that's what it feels like for me.
Is there like a philosophy about kind of like the evolution of the ages, sort of? Because a lot of what you're talking about sounds a little bit like Hinduism, for example. And I know that they have like the different ages where like right now we're in this like sped up sort of dark time.
Not anything that I'm really in tune with, like through there's many different lineages inside of these temples too. Gotcha. So it's not just one type of person. It's open to and diverse. So everybody comes from a different place, but the common denominator is community, love, sisterhood, healing, sovereignty, finding your voice, finding your purpose, being of use in the world. That's what I would say is a common denominator for everybody.
That's cool.
And many people will come and not even really know what it is, but just want to be there anyway.
How did they find out about it?
Just like anything else, there's just all kinds of stuff out there on the internet. And so if you just look up, priestesspresence.com, you can learn about that. There's all kinds of temples and organizations and communities and ways of being in sisterhood that have really served me. I've worked with a lot of different teachers from a lot of different lineages, and so I guess it's kind of like being a tapestry of a bunch of different threads, and then building relationships. Yeah,
I love that, because it's like, it's absolutely divine feminine, right? It's like not just one thing.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. I get it. Okay. I love it. Yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah. So thanks for asking about that. So that's how I've learned about priestessing and what that means to me. And when I started to call myself a priestess, for a long time, I wasn't really sure what it even meant, or do people think I'm going to be like a Satan worshiper or something, you know? And I was afraid, oh, this is going to really mess with my brand. People won't know who I am or want to work with me. But when I came out with it and just decided I'm a publisher for women who've had spiritual awakenings, you know, midwife of the divine feminine, that's when my business started to really flourish, because I was in alignment now. All the pieces of me are allowed to have a voice in my company. And I have to model that for all my authors.
Yeah.
So I had to take that leap and risk being judged. But that's one of the biggest parts of the work in Temple for me, has been to learn how to not judge myself anymore, and therefore not judge anybody else.
Yeah.
So it's like this container of non-judgment, which is why it's such a safe place for people to go and do the work.
Yeah. Yeah. I was just thinking about something my previous guest had said about, like, there's like a space that's made exactly for you that you fit perfectly into, right? We are always trying to fit into the space that's not made for us. You know?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like we have to carve our own space out. It may not be there waiting for us. We have to carve it out. And I think that's part of the potency of these times right now. Like you were saying, we're in this dark period, you know, and yeah, we certainly are. And there's a lot of times when I get really anxious that, like, we're going out as a species, as a planet. And then I have to kind of reel myself back in and remember and get present. Oh, look at the beauty in that flower. Look at the beauty in our conversation. Look at the beauty of the fact that I have electricity right now and can be on the screen with you, and we've never met in person, right?
Yeah.
So just finding ways to keep ourselves vibrant, vital, and helpful, and calm in the midst of chaos, really is what it comes down to. Like, regulating our nervous system is a lot of this.
Yeah, good. I can't believe that we just talked for an hour. I was like, at some point I'm gonna have to ask her to give us her links and stuff. Oh my gosh, it's that flew by.
Yeah.
Do you want to share with everybody how they can get in contact with you if they want to kind of watch your writing retreats, anything like that?
Oh, sure. Yeah. So you can check out our website, which is floweroflifepress.com. You can also, if you're interested in writing, you can opt in to get a free training that I created called Your Writing Roadmap. The 3 phases of writing a bestseller that leaves your audience raving. And in order to get that, all you have to do is apply to our Divine Writing Journey program, but there's no obligation to join. You just have to go into divinewritingjourney.com and fill out a 2-question application. And when you do that, then I'll send you the training into your inbox. But that just helps us. It's the 2 very simple questions, like, do you have a writing practice right now or not? And what's your vision as a writer? So those 2 questions will help me get you the right information and see if I can serve you in whatever way.
Cool. I'm going to put both of those in the podcast description notes so people can click on those.
Okay.
Do you have anything you want to share before we go, or do you feel complete?
Oh, thank you, Porter. No, I feel great. I really appreciate this time together, and you're asking me to be here, and I'm happy to support you in your work.
Thank you. Yes, well, I'm very grateful that you decided to show up, and I will see you on the calls, because I will definitely continue to be part of the Kathleen McGowan Patreon community as it evolves. Yeah. Have a great day, and thank you all for listening.
I'll talk to you soon. Take care.